if you're responsible for following that policy, then I should be able to look it up any day, anytime while I'm doing my job.
Yeah. And if you're not doing that, this is when you do something and you hear an employee say, well, when did we start doing that way? So when you know you have a training issue.
Yeah.
Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right. Protect your patients. Day and night. Donna and David, the experts on your side. Help me with HIPAA. Let's get it right.
Today we're going to be talking about a risk analysis not being a checkbox. It's not optional. And we're going to talk about the Top of the World Ranch Treatment Center SRA settlement that just came out. And for some reason, I want to always think about the Carpenters when I
know. I kept humming that song as I'm reading it.
Yeah. So if you're old like we are, you know what we're talking about.
That's right. If not, go listen. It's a great song.
It is. It is. Carpenters are great. So, we're going to dig through this settlement here. As always, this is a learning moment for everybody. Going through these settlements is an opportunity to understand what OCR is looking for, what they expect, what they found as a problem, because usually they find in the same problems everywhere or very similar. And so when those people are saying, I don't understand what OCR wants us to do, I don't know what they're looking for, I don't know how to do this stuff. Well, it's pretty prescriptive in these things. So let's dive in.
Yeah, it's, we go through these every time. And so years and years, you can go back and find all of our discussions on the settlements. And we're always trying to explain the same thing over and over. This is consulting. This is, this is consulting that they are doing to show you. So when, it's the learn from someone else's mistakes. And this one goes, a lot of times these are really old, but this one's March 2023. They filed a breach report. The Top of the World Ranch Treatment Center filed a breach report because there was a successful phishing attack. Mm-hmm. So the email was full of PHI. Yet another reason, we have encrypted email is not the solution.
No, just don't do it. Just don't do it.
No. And go at least periodically do some sort of purge or, archive so you have fewer out there if you are putting PHI in your emails. And people go back years and years.
It's worth saying too, because I've had this happen. I've had clients say, or even prospects when I'm talking to them, they'll say, I need a email encryption solution. And I'm like, well, are you emailing PHI? No. Are you planning to email PHI? No. What about PII? No. Well, why do you need this? Because somebody told me I had to have it. I'm like, well, if you're not doing those things, this is probably not a reason you need this. Why do you think you need it? Well, I don't really know.
Everybody just says you're supposed to do it.
Yeah. So, my thing is, and I always tell them this, if at all possible, never, ever send PHI or PII through email, period, ever. Now, if you think you might do it, then get an encryption service. But if you think somebody might slip up and do it anyway, they probably aren't going to encrypt it anyway, unless you've got something that's catching these things and automatically encrypting it. But anyway, it's a conversation to be had.
Well, and when if somebody messes up and does it, a lot of times if you know not to do it, then you're more likely to be able to say, made a mistake. We can catch that because we've got it going out. And now I can say, let's go delete that and remove it and make sure it's gone. Mm-hmm. I can't do that if it's full of it, right? So.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, because everybody uses their email inbox as storage, myself included. Yeah. So that was never really the intention of email, 50 years ago. But that's what people do now.
Well, and, we're still waiting for that email killer. But,
not going to happen.
It's the one consistent thing everybody still uses.
Mm-hmm.
There's no standard messaging app that you can use like you can email, where it doesn't matter what app you use, you're accessing the system. And until we have that consistency through interrelated, like if Slack talked to Google Chat and talked to Teams and they could all talk to each other, now you're talking email replacement. But we're not going to be able to do that as long as we have these silos. So anyway, that's neither here nor there for this particular issue. Look, rabbit hole. David and I both went diving down it. So because of the 1,980 patients that were in the email account, they had to do breach notification. And with that many, then you're guaranteed an OCR investigation where they're going to say, send me documentation showing A, B, C, D, E. We've helped many people through these. We know what they're looking for. If you've been working with us, people get stressed out, and that's normal. You're still like under investigation, still is a thing. But you've got the stuff. It's when you don't have the stuff that it's absolutely stressful. And, we've helped people get past it. But apparently they didn't have that.
Ooh.
So they had, in their investigation, it found that they had failed to conduct an accurate and thorough risk analysis to determine the potential risks and vulnerabilities to the confidentiality, integrity, availability of the EPHI that they hold as required under the HIPAA security rule.
Yep.
So that then prompts this press release of, hey, look, everybody, we've signed a settlement agreement. And as customary, we get what you're supposed to pay attention to at a minimum based on what the director's statement is. It looks like this one was signed in 2025, so there's no cadence anymore to when they do the press releases. I think it's like, oh yeah, we forgot to tell everybody we did that. Or when they get further down the cap, I don't know. But we have our new director statement, so you can tell us what we're supposed to pay attention to, David.
Sure. In her statement, she says, in a time where healthcare providers and other HIPAA-related entities are facing unprecedented cybersecurity threats, compliance with the HIPAA risk analysis provision is more essential than ever. Covered entities and business associates cannot protect electronic PHI if they haven't identified potential risk and vulnerabilities to that health information. Yeah, that's it. I mean, pretty much same thing we say all the time. You can't protect things you don't know about.
That's
right. You don't know where the data is, you can't protect it. You don't know where the risks are, you can't protect against them. You don't know where the vulnerabilities are.
You don't know.
No, I know. And all that comes from the risk analysis. Therefore, the reason they call it that.
And yes. So we got, there's been some tweaks. There's always tweaks to the language in the corrective action plan. By the way, on this one, it was a $103,000 check and a 2-year corrective action plan, which is the real hard part.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's no joke. This, you got a lot of reporting to do and timelines to meet. So, there was a couple of little things changing the language up a bit, but there's some very specific things that you should be paying attention to as far as making sure you have what they're saying they are going to create, because they're telling them to create the thing they didn't have, and here's what we expect to see. I can then read that as someone who's supposed to do this and say, ooh, that's what I should do too. That's what this gives you. And, there's the complete and accurate, the language, vulnerabilities to the confidentiality, integrity, and availability. Often, people only worry about confidentiality. So there's a piece right there. Confidentiality, integrity, and availability. You have to worry about availability and making sure that the data is complete and not FUBARD.
Yeah. That's a great technical term.
But then they point out, as part of this process, they shall, that's important language, legalese shall, include a complete inventory of all electronic equipment, data systems, offsite data storage facilities, and applications that contain or store ePHI that will then be incorporated in its risk analysis. So we've hit all of them. If you're not doing a full inventory of where everything lives, moves, and breathes in your organization, you don't have that inventory, which it is brutal the first time you do it. But if you maintain it, just like anything else, it's manageable. And then this language, the risk analysis will include vulnerability scans and penetration testing.
Penetration testing.
Yeah, but it's the I don't think it's the high end version of penetration testing. It's the general, let's probe and see if we can get in easily, see if we find any openings, and that's generally what we see done. And obviously what we do through ours is to make sure we're looking for the internal vulnerabilities as well as all the IPs that are internet facing. Can we get to things? Now, problem with that, though, is so much remote work. How do you, that's a whole nother thing.
Yeah. Well, we've done a whole episode on penetration testing, understanding that just that phrase can mean a lot of different things. So, but I think you're absolutely right that it's really pen testing of the outside facing IP addresses and such. So fairly basic type of scan just to see what we can do.
And really, that's a good episode to go back and understand that penetration testing is a very broad term. And that we could do a whole episode on what does that really mean. So go back and find it. I can't tell you when it was.
And oftentimes people, not to get sidetracked, but people misrepresent or confuse what a penetration test is versus a vulnerability assessment.
Yes.
So
those are two things. They are called, they even say vulnerability scans and penetration testing. So two different things. Noted. Because on ours, we hire partners to do it. And I don't want to be in the technical world at all. I want to be looking at it from a governance and can you prove it perspective. And so we always do that. And if somebody elects not to do it, they don't want to have us do that, bring them in, then we say, okay, well, we're going to put it on your risk management plan that you need to do it, because we really can't address everything because we haven't done it. So anyway, that brings us, perfect segue, to the next requirement is to develop an enterprise-wide risk management plan to address and mitigate any security risk and vulnerabilities identified, including, now I thought this was interesting, any security risk and vulnerabilities identified in the risk analysis, including any risk and vulnerabilities pertaining to the accessibility of ePHI. Yeah. I'm like, were they talking about that because, the availability? Or are they talking about that because of email phishing was this particular case. And so that's a way you can access PHIs in your email account, and no one had ever thought of that. I don't know, but I kind of highlighted it, like, what are they really talking about here? And then here's the other piece that is often overlooked, is the plan shall include a process and timeline for implementation, evaluation, and revision of the risk mediation activities. People are always like, can't you just give us the list? We're like, nope. You've got to lay out a plan. We've prioritized for you what our recommended priorities are, but you need to say, I'm going to do this, second quarter 2026. I'm going to do this third quarter 2026. You need to have those timelines and then an associated project plan.
Wow, that's almost like a plan. I wonder why it's called a risk management plan.
Not plan usually, yeah. Interesting. So we don't give you when you should do it. We give you what we recommend you do, but it's still your business to run, and you should participate in the risk management plan. And then here's another thing that, for years, we had a situation where everybody said, and it was okay to go maybe every other year to do a risk analysis. You need to do something every year, but maybe not like the full-blown areas. But at a minimum, you should be conducting an accurate and thorough assessment of the risk and vulnerabilities, blah, 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 on an annual basis. Annual basis. So everybody that says, well, HIPAA doesn't say I have to do it annually. No, it doesn't. But here's the consulting that tells you we're expecting to see it annually. We don't have to do it every year.
But those same people that say we don't have to do it every year, it's like, well, when did you last do one? I don't know, 7, 8, 10 years ago. I don't know.
It is at least 2 or 3 years ago. We do them every 2 or 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, can you find
it's like,
it?
How often do you think your vulnerabilities and risks have changed? I mean, more frequently than once a year. So,
and we, from time to time, we have folks that'll do the initial one with us, and we'll say, here's all the things you should do. And they're like, yeah, we can't do that. And then off they go. And then they come back to us and they haven't really made any progress. Haven't talked to them. It's 2 years. So we do the whole assessment again. But now it's worse because everything was documented that you needed to do 2 years ago, and you've done nothing. So now it's worse, and is not going to improve until you improve the security. That's how things work. So for the most part, you expect that you're going to be reviewing this on a regular basis. So I've got my risk management plan, and I'm going to, on a regular basis, I'm going to review that quarterly, maybe, with leadership, but the people responsible for all the projects should be able to provide updates on that on a regular basis. So here is subsequent risk analysis and risk management plans. Every time they have the first one, and then annually they have more, and OCR is reviewing these things when you're in corrective action plan. So they're going to tell them where they've done things wrong, one would expect. But that doesn't mean once they're off the corrective action plan, they're done. Everybody should be doing this. Let's be clear. So here is a list of they shall review and as necessary develop or revise written policies, procedures, and other written communications. Thought that was interesting. Related to risk analysis, risk management, information system activity review, and breach notification. So that tells me maybe there was a breach notification issue. Timeliness, I don't know. And then here is another annually issue. Assess, update, and revise as necessary policies and procedures at least annually.
Yeah, there you go again.
It's ongoing work, you know. Minimum content of the policies and procedures, and then it hits on some ones I kind of just highlighted again is the minimum for privacy, security, breach notification provisions, risk analysis. Policies and procedures should say they're going to do it and conduct it on an annual basis. It should be in your policies and procedures to do that. That you're going to implement the security measures on your risk management plan, that you're actually going to follow your risk management plan. There should be policies and procedures that say you're going to do it. And then on information system activity review is implement procedures to regularly review the records, and it includes such as, so everybody put your listening ears on, audit logs, access report, and security incident tracking reports. Okay.
So that means you got to have them if you got to review them.
Yeah, at least show that you did it, right?
Yeah.
Show your work. That's what they're talking about. Now, does it mean you need to keep every single audit log? No, but you need to keep the documentation showing you've reviewed it. And I would keep, some of them. I don't know if everything for 6 years, but you need to have reports showing this is happening. What you keep, that's kind of up to each and every one of us. And then, of course, breach notification, including provisions to timely notify, which makes me think this may not have been timely.
Yeah, kind of sounds that way.
Under the training policies and procedures, that here's one of the things that a lot of people don't do properly on training is train them on your policies and procedures. So train workforce on its policies and procedures with respect to PHI as necessary and appropriate for the members of the workforce to carry out their functions within the covered entity. Okay, so what that's saying is I need to train you to follow the policies and procedures that apply to your job.
Yep.
Now, if you just tell somebody to read the policies and procedures manual, do you think they're trained?
Technically, no.
Yeah. And if you tell them to read it when they're hired or whenever you have to write new ones like this, again, not trained because they never read them again.
Yeah.
So,
well, there's a difference between read this and then being trained on it.
yeah. So this is an area that's often overlooked because your policies and procedures, they can't be exactly the same as everybody else's. So if you have the policies and procedures, then you should have some training periodically about the policies and procedures. And then, of course, the security awareness and training program, that security awareness is separate from your policies and procedures and regulatory training. And they make sure that they say the training program is for all members of the workforce, and then in parentheses, including management.
Yep.
To include periodic security updates, procedures for guarding against, detecting, and reporting malicious software, procedures for creating, changing, and safeguarding passwords must be in it. Okay, there. You should know what you should be doing. And that the training, whenever somebody's trained, they have to sign off on it, electronic, written, whatever, the date, and the person has to confirm they did it. That information must specify the date the training was received, and all course material shall be retained.
Yep. What did you train them on? I want to see it.
Mm-hmm. And you should review the training at least annually.
Yeah. So what would you do in the case where people are buying these platforms for training? Here's a course, and they take the course, and they don't necessarily have those materials because it's a course, a video course.
You should be able to get an inventory of your training and be able to keep that documentation whether it be, the slide deck or something like that, to say this is the topics that we were trained on. So whether it's, whoever, David Sims' awesome training, he should be supplying you with, here's the training you're buying, here's what's included for your documentation. If you don't have that, you need to be asking a lot of questions.
Mm-hmm.
So you should be looking for trouble. Because if you're not looking, all right.
Yeah. Well, they go on to say, I don't know if you touched this one or not, but the training also has to be reviewed annually, at least annually, and then updated.
So you need to know what's in there. And if your policies and procedures that you're reviewing annually change, you should train on it. I know it's way out there, but it becomes hard to follow policies and procedures that people are never told about. I can't prove your policies and procedures are implemented and being followed if you can't prove you've trained people on it and given them to the people that are, if you're responsible for following that policy, then I should be able to look it up any day, anytime while I'm doing my job.
Yeah. And if you're not doing that, this is when you do something and you hear an employee say, well, when did we start doing that way? So when you know you have a training issue.
Yeah. Or that's not the way I do it. And then you have multiple people saying how they do it, and all of them different. There's a warning.
Yeah. My favorite is, don't worry about it. This is the way we should do it.
Yeah. That's one of the things when we were doing policies and procedures, and everybody likes to say should. And I'm like, it's not should. It's not should. Yeah. It's shall. Shall or will. It's not should. So, it is a thing. And then there's a section that's in there, and it's always in there, but it's just a good time to bring it up because we run into this all the time, and it's one of those things that, particularly when it's somebody that hasn't been assessed a lot by third parties like us, and we ask, what sanctions, what records of sanctions do you have for the last, 6 years, 2 years, whatever. We'll ask them, how you've applied sanctions according to your sanction policy, for violations, HIPAA policy and procedure. And they'll be like, we don't have violations.
Really?
Yeah, you've never had anybody violate a company policy that had to do with privacy or security. Never. Made a mistake. Never. Ever. Happened. No, it's impossible. Every time I see it, my eyes just bleed a little bit more.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure.
The answer should be, not that I know of.
Yeah. So in all of these corrective action plans, there's a section, that says during this corrective action program that they're on, upon receiving information that a workforce member may have failed to comply with its policies and procedures. That's what we're talking about. Failed to comply with the policies and procedures. They should promptly investigate this matter. If they determine after a review and investigation that a workforce member failed to comply with the policies and procedures, then they have to send that information to HHS, and that such violations shall be known as reportable events, and they have to give them a complete description of the event, including the relevant facts, the people involved, and the provisions. I don't know how all that word just ran into one big pile of bleh. But how they screwed up, the policies and procedures that were involved, and the actions taken and further steps they plan to take to address the matter to make sure that this isn't going to continue And that's where it says, including application of appropriate sanctions against the workforce members who failed to comply with its HIPAA rules, policies, and procedures.
Yeah.
I mean,
Pretty
that's how you
self-explanatory.
show it.
Yeah. Because if you've got policies and procedures and people aren't following them, and admittedly, it's more times than not, it's because somebody just made a mistake. And I think that's where people fall into this thing. Well, we haven't violated HIPAA. Well, maybe not intentionally, but unintentionally you probably did. Or in a smaller practice, it's like, well, the doctor is the owner and they violate HIPAA all the time. What am I supposed to do? Or they violate policies and procedures, because nobody wants to say they violate HIPAA, because most people don't even know, that's a bigger thing. Like,
well, everybody, when you talk about violating HIPAA, everybody thinks about confidentiality, breaking confidentiality, sharing records, and all that. But there is so much more to it. And that's the part that gets overlooked so often. But if you can't prove that you are enforcing your policies and procedures, how are you proving that people are following them?
It's a mic drop right there.
I'm just saying. All right, so what do you think, David? Let's while it does show us that they are still serious about their enforcement initiative for SRAs. That is a definite. But what other things should we all take away from what we just reviewed?
Well, most certainly phishing is still a thing. Your email inbox is still probably one of the most highest risk things that you have. And I don't see that changing anytime soon. When people don't have advanced security, and I'm not talking about just, it comes with basic email security. Like, you should really fortify your email inbox. You should have MFA on your email accounts and all these things, because that is a very high risk entry point, if not the highest. So those are the first couple things that jump out. Also, as you've already pointed out a bunch, your risk analysis has got to be comprehensive, documented. It's got to be annually, not every 2 or 3 years. I mean, in multiple times in this, it says annual, multiple times. Obviously, your inventory is still critical. Inventory, everything. Your systems, where the data is, software, people, like inventory. And then lastly, the vulnerability scanning and pen testing. That's getting to where it's expected now, more than it was before. And it needs to be part of your SRA. It's just, you've got to do it.
Well, and so often you see people do the vulnerability scans and the penetration testing and then say that is their SRA. So yes, it needs to be part of it.
Yeah. And this is when I hear that a technology company, an MSP or an IT firm, when they're saying things like, we will do a HIPAA risk assessment, I am very, very cautious about what that means, because more often than not, they're running a vulnerability scan or a penetration test. And at best, they're giving you some kind of questionnaire to go along with it. And they're like, there's your HIPAA security risk assessment. And I'm like, no way. There is no way that's going to ever pass.
Well, it's not a complete and thorough risk analysis. And we've seen cases where those have been submitted and OCR comes back and says, yeah, you're going to need to give me more than this, here, looking at it today. So I think that's a pretty good overview of what Back to the Basics, SRA, Corrective Action Plan Consulting tells us.
Yeah. I mean, it's pretty much the same thing we've said for 550 something episodes.
I know. Starting to look a little scary when you realize that,
Yeah, I would say get back to basics, but I don't think we've left the basics. So there you go. It's still the same stuff, and it's got to be done, and it's got to be done right. And you can't skip steps, because I often see people that go straight to implementing the stuff that should be on a risk management plan, but they don't have a risk management plan, and they also don't have a risk assessment. They just start implementing crap.
Yeah, just do things. I know this will help. Just do things. Oh, and make sure you have AI in there on that SRA. Any SRA starting in 2025 forward, really, you should start pushing that multiple AI approaches or angles should be evaluated. So,
yeah. Kind of on a side note, we've talked before about the security rule changes that are coming, though we don't know what they are. Did hear somewhat of an update on that. The only thing I can really share is that they're still reading through the comments. So, because there were thousands.
Yeah.
So although changes are coming, we don't know yet when or what that actually looks like, because still going through the comments.
Yeah.
So, yeah. So, I bring that up to say there are people out there that are saying changes are coming. These are the proposed changes. Let's go ahead and do all these things. My thing is, look, it's my feeling on it. It's just me right now. It's a money grab because you don't know yet what you're going to be required to do. And people are trying to fear you into spending money on something that you may or may not have to do. So let's just slow down, people. We can't even get you to do these things that we talked about today yet. Don't start jumping the gun.
Well, if you have solid policies and procedures, you do have your inventory and your risk analysis done properly, then you're going to be head and shoulders above everybody else. Throw in there recognized security practices using HIPAA or, CPGs or something, and whatever the changes are is not going to have a huge impact if you're doing those things. But, we've been saying do HIPAA since 2019. We've been saying these are the things that you need to be doing so that you're not behind, so that you're not impacted. You're already doing what the changes require. Yeah.
Well, the things we talked about today, they're not going anywhere. So you're not going to waste your time doing a risk analysis or a risk management plan. You just go ahead and if you haven't done that, you're already so far behind, you better at least get that done. And then we can go from there. But things aren't going to get easier. Technology's changed a ton. And so you better get started.
Get her done.
That's right. All right. Anything else before we put a bow on it?
No, bow it up.
All right. That is our show for today, folks. Thanks for listening. Be sure to share this out to your favorite social media site if you have one. Send us a rating and review. We appreciate those. And remember, for Donna and myself, HIPAA is not about compliance. It's about patient care.
You've been listening to the Help Me with HIPAA podcast, hosted by Donna Grindle and David Sims. The show created to help you with HIPAA. For more information or to ask us a question, visit our website at helpmewithhipaa.com. Neither Donna Grindle or David Sims are attorneys, and they do not offer binding legal advice concerning regulatory compliance. The information in this podcast should not be relied upon or construed as legal advice in any way. Consult your attorney for legal advice concerning compliance with HIPAA regulations.